Hi everyone, it's Carrie from Carrie's Wreath Creations. I'm here today to show you how to make the Dean Michael daisy petal. So this petal is used in many different kinds of flower style wreaths. You'll see them used a lot in sunflowers and also just mixed into a lot of the different flower wreaths that you see. We're going to be working with poly burlap today. I'm going to be showing you a couple different ways to fold this petal with the poly burlap. Just know that you can also apply this to deco mesh, fabric mesh, whatever you're using. I just prefer poly burlap because I like how stiff it is. It holds the shape of the petals very nicely. So I have here a 10 by 10 piece of poly burlap. I did cut it with a wood burning tool in order to prevent fray. So these are my cut edges here, okay? And then these are my factory edges, all right? So it's 10 by 10. And the other supplies you're going to want for this, in addition to the poly burlap and whatever method you use to cut it with, again, I use the wood burning tool. If you're making a wreath, you want to have your wreath frame or board ready. If you want to just make your petals ahead of time, you might want to have some clips, or I tend to use these little rubber bands in order to hold my petals in place. So that way I can pre-make all my petals and then load them onto the into the wreath when I'm done. You may also want one of these little clips. These are useful when you want to keep your petal looking perfect as you're folding. So like I said, there's a couple different techniques. I'm going to start by showing you the one that I use, and then I'll show you a little bit of a different technique as well, and you can choose what works best for you. So I have my poly burlap. It is curl side up. It's curling slightly. I did try to flatten it a bit, but it comes on a roll, so it's going to be a little bit curly. Here are my factory edges. Here are my cut edges. What I'm going to do is turn it into a diamond shape, and then I'm going to take the bottom here and bring it up to meet the top. Okay, so I have a triangle just like this. Now here's where you might want to utilize your clip, because in this petal you want that point, which is 2 layers, okay, because we just folded one on top of the other. You're going to want that point to stay nice and connected. So sometimes when you're folding, it tends to want to come apart, so I usually clip it in order to have that top stay together. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this onto its side. Okay, now here is where I'll show you my technique. Actually, that's how I'm going to finish this, but I'll show you a couple of other things that people will do when they make these petals. So I have seen before where people take the center, which is about right here, and they pinch that, okay? And then they gather kind of the same number of times above and below where they have that gathered. And that gather is about an inch, okay? So I will see people gather, and then they'll sort of scrunch, say 1, 2, 3 times here, and then 1, 2, 3 times here. You get the idea. That will make a petal. I'm not going to fluff this out because that's actually not the way that I usually do it, but it is a technique that some people use and are very effective at it. I preferred a little bit different style, so I will show you how I do mine, okay? Another thing with poly burlap, when you mess with it, it's going to start fraying, it's going to start getting wrinkled. So, you want to figure out your best method before you get started. So for me, I like to start at the bottom and work up towards the top. And this is just from practice and doing this many times and figuring out what works best for me. A lot of people like the gather and then the scrunching, and knowing exactly how many scrunches they need to do and the exact amount of material they want to gather each time. For me, this other technique just works a little better. So I take the bottom, I just turn that little tip underneath just to kind of have it hidden, and then I just start scrunching, okay? And I'm just sort of gathering a little bit of material every time until I get to the other end, and then I'm going to just tuck that little end under as well, okay? So I have everything gathered. Again, it doesn't really look like much until you need to, kind of fluff it out. So at this point, you can go ahead and take your clip off if you'd like. You can leave it on too. But you see how that kept that point together? It only looks like one layer, and that's what you want. And then I'm just kind of taking my petal and I'm sort of just forming it the way I want it to look. So for most of my flowers, I do it so the petal is sort of cupped downward like this. You could also place it in the border on the frame with the cup up. That's another technique. It's not actually, it's the same technique, just a little bit different look, okay? And then once you have that, you can either place it into the board. So I do have a board with a zip tie. I'm actually not working on anything right at this moment, so I'm not gonna put this into the board, but I am going to take my little rubber band here and I'm gonna put it on the end. So that way when I am ready to make a sunflower or any other flower that needs the yellow, I will have this petal ready to go. And then once I get that band on there, I can really sort of fan this out, get rid of any bubbles or anything that I don't want, and I have my perfect Dean Michael daisy petal, okay? Now, if that either one of those techniques with the scrunching in the middle first and gathering on either side, or how I showed you there at the end where I scrunch from one end up to the other, if that doesn't work for you and you still have problems where it doesn't look like one uniform petal, and that'll happen sometimes if your cuts are just a little bit off, you're gonna see maybe that, you know, it's hard to kind of like hide one behind the other. Because again, it is 2 layers, okay? If you're having trouble with that technique, here's something else that you can do. So you do need for this some kind of a ruler or just a straight edge basically. And I'm gonna use a rotary cutter, okay? What I'm gonna do is cut this diagonally. It's again a 10 by 10 inch piece. And I'm just gonna cut it diagonally from corner to corner. Okay. Now with this, as soon as you cut this, this is gonna potential to fray there. You can already see, maybe you can't, but on my mat, I already have a couple of little shreds that came off. Okay, that's the one, I think, downside to this technique, but that part is gonna go into your zip tie. So it's not that big of a deal. You just gotta understand that you're gonna have a little bit of these little frays that come off. So then, okay, so it was like this, okay, it was still curl side up. Okay, here are my factory edges and my cut edges. I cut the diagonal, and then I'm just gonna place one on top of the other. And if you can see here, here are my 2 factory edges, here are my 2 cut edges. I'm lining them up like that, okay? And I'm gonna go ahead and again, with my clip the top there. So this is good to do if you're just really having a hard time getting the exact 10 by 10, because what you wanna do is make sure these are lined up as best you can. What you might find is that maybe the bottom isn't quite lined up, or any other place might not be quite lined up, but this should make it look pretty uniform as long as because the closer you get to the bottom, that's where it's going into the board. It might get covered by other petals. So if it's not perfect at the bottom, that might be okay, depending, you know, where you're placing it in the board. But just get these edges lined up best you can, okay? And then actually what I'm gonna do, I want this to be, I'm actually going to do it so it's curl side down. It's hard to tell because I flatten this a lot, but I just want it to be curl side down. I would rather scrunch it that way. Okay, so it's curl side down. And then I'm going to start again. This would be where you could take your same technique that I showed you earlier. You can either scrunch in the middle and gather on either side, or for me, what I like to do, take that little end here, turn that under, and just scrunch along the bottom, just like this. Okay. Just like that, okay? Take your clip off. You could always put your band on at this point if you don't want to hold it while you form it, but I mean, you're seeing what I'm doing. I'm not doing it like that, but you could, okay? You can always adjust really at any point. Once the band is on, you can continue to adjust a little bit. And you can, as you can see, I got some shreds going on here. You could always wood burn that diagonal cut, but it really doesn't matter because this is going to be what would go into the board and you're not going to see it. But there is my second perfect Dean Michael daisy petal, just using with the diagonal cut. It is one extra step, but if you're having issues getting it to line up perfectly with the folding like this one, this is an option as well. I hope this video was helpful. Thank you for watching. Please feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I have lots of full-length tutorial videos. I also put most of my Facebook Lives on there, as well as other petal technique videos. You're also welcome to join me on Facebook, Instagram, or Pinterest. I am also on TikTok. You can find me at Carrie's Wreath Creations on all those platforms. Please check the description box below for my affiliate links to Unique in the Creek, who make the boards and supply the poly burlap. I also have an Amazon affiliate shop, and I appreciate you watching me today. Thanks, and take care, everyone. Bye.